This is Vermont Edition. I'm Michaela Lafrac. Y'all, I'm so excited for today's show. We get to share an interview that we recorded a few weeks ago, and I've been thinking about it constantly since then. It's the latest in our occasional series, Vermont Edition At Home. Our whole team heads over to somebody's house and we record an interview in their favorite space.
Mike, is that a good?
Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
Hello.
That voice you're hearing is Alison Bechdel. She's one of our country's most well-known cartoonists. She lives in Bolton.
Strangely, I had to leave the house today, which is not my usual routine. Because
we conducted our interview in Alison's home studio, which is full of the tools of her trade. Paintbrushes, drawing tables, and bookshelves full of books by artists and writers she admires. The windows look out onto the woods. It seems like a great place to make art.
It's a little close quarters in here.
That's what's been so fun about this series, is like getting to actually see where you work. Feels so special.
Oh, good.
Alison Bechdel created the long-running, beloved comic series Dykes to Watch Out For. It followed the lives of a diverse group of characters, most of them lesbians, through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. The characters aged in real time and dealt with the issues of the day. You'll hear her talk about how some of those characters now pop up in her new book, Spent, which blends fiction and nonfiction. It's out this week. Alison Bechdel is also the author of 3 graphic memoirs, Fun Home, Are You My Mother, and The Secret to Superhuman Strength. She's a MacArthur Genius Grant recipient, and Fun Home was adapted into a Broadway musical in 2015. It won 5 Tony Awards, including Best Musical, and the show was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize. Here's my personal favorite song from the soundtrack. It's called Come to the Fun Home.
Here at the Fun Home, that's a Bechdel funeral home, baby. Come to the Fun Home. We got Kleenex and your choice of psalm. Stop by the Fun Home. Think of Bechdel when you need your embalm. You've got no reason to roam. Use the Bechdel funeral home. What it is.
Her new graphic novel, Spent, takes place in Vermont, and it's teeming with characters and scenes that will feel familiar to anyone who lives in and loves this region. I adored this book. And with that, here's Alison Bechdel at home. Alison Bechdel, thank you so much for inviting Vermont Edition into your home.
Absolutely, Michaela. Very happy to have you.
So this book, Spent, is a comic novel, but it clearly has a lot of you and your life and your family in it. The main character is named Alison. When you started this, how did you think about this shift from writing a memoir, as you have in the past, to writing a comic novel? What is the line between those two?
The line between those two is, this was actually, my plan was for this to be yet another memoir. I was going to write a memoir, a searching, soul-scathing memoir about my relationship to money and living under capitalism and privilege and elitism and all of that stuff. But when I sat down to really write it, I felt super bored. Like I didn't want to have to do all the research that would involve. I was tired of trying to tell the exact truth about my life the way I did in my previous memoirs, which was really an arduous process. And all of a sudden I thought, what if I, instead of writing a memoir about money, I wrote about a cartoonist named Alison Bechdel who's trying to write a book about money. And then it just all sort of came to life for me. And I'm not one of those artists who has inspiration. Like most of the work I do just comes from sheer dogged effort. But this was a moment of inspiration. And all of a sudden this idea for this quasi-fictional scenario just seemed really interesting. Like it's sort of about my life. It's sort of not. This character is essentially me, but is also really not me. We live on this pygmy goat sanctuary in the book, but obviously you can see I don't have any pygmy goats.
No goats. Bit of a disappointment when I drove in.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know. But it was really fun to imagine that world. And then it collided with the world of my old comic strip that I wrote for so many years, Dykes to Watch Out For, when I realized, oh my God, I can make some of those characters be my friends in this new book. So it was like this weird way of my memoir work meeting my comic strip work in this kind of metafictional explosion.
Well, having read Fun Home and then reading this, I loved noticing the little changes that you made to sort of fictionalize your world. Just, in real life, you grew up with a funeral home director as a father. In this book, it's a taxidermist. Who is your dad?
Yes.
What were some of the other fun details that you got to play with?
Well, in the book, Alison wrote a memoir about her father, the taxidermist, that got turned, not like my memoir Fun Home, into a Broadway musical, but into a prestige TV series called Death and Taxidermy, starring Benedict Cumberbatch and Sarah Paulson and Aubrey Plaza as Alison.
I noted you cast Aubrey as yourself. We'll get to that.
So it's just ridiculous things like that sort of allowed me to process things that have been happening to me in my life and career over the years.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, the fictionalized Alison and Holly are friends with this group of people that you sort of resurrected from Dykes to Watch Out For. And well, for one, I loved that you've created sort of this Marvel Universe vibe for yourself with all of these people and characters coming back in new ways. But also, comparing the drawings that you did of these folks years ago to now, you can see how these people have aged, how you've aged your friends. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that process.
Yeah. So I stopped drawing. I drew Dykes to Watch Out For 25 years. I stopped in 2008. And just to do other things. And it had been very grueling with having this regular deadline for so many years. And I was happy to be free of these characters. But over time, I started to miss them. So when I was writing my comic strip all those years ago, it existed in real time. Like the characters aged, the little children grew up, the older characters got slightly grayer over time. But when I had to go back and figure out how are these people who were like in their late 40s, maybe in 2008, how are they going to look now, almost 20 years later? And so it was just fun to play with that. I mean, it's certainly something I have been aware of as I run into people at the co-op who looked vaguely familiar. And then I realized, oh my God, that's so-and-so. Wow, she's not holding up very well. Like everyone's going through these massive transformations. So it was fun. I padded some of them with extra weight. Their hair has gone white or gray. Stuart is mostly bald, but has his little remaining hair in a man bun. It was fun trying to figure out how they would all look now.
Yeah.
How they do look now. Since they're my friends.
Well, it's fun to see those drawings because I feel like you see versions of those people, as you said, everywhere. You have some great co-op scenes with people that I felt like I recognized. And there is also, folks are aging, but there's like romance and intrigue and
oh yeah, these people
love
have a lot
triangles
going on.
Yeah. Why'd you take it there?
Well, I don't know. That's kind of my beat, relationships. That's what I've always written about. And it's just an easy narrative structure. Like in this case, it's not a rom-com. It's like a throm-com. It's the story of this throuple of three people getting involved in a romantic relationship, which was just sort of interesting to figure out how that would even go.
Yeah. Well, it definitely makes it a page turner. And as I was saying, seeing characters that I recognize from life in Vermont felt really special as a Vermonter reading this book. And I also loved just all the little references to Vermont life here. I feel like it's going to be really fun for readers in our region to pick this up and recognize themselves in it.
Well, it's kind of a love letter to Vermont. I mean, when I wrote the comic strip, I always kept it very the place non-specific because I wanted everyone to be able to identify with this community. But I kind of wrote about Vermont in my last book, The Secret to Superhuman Strength about my own journey to get here and how much Vermont means to me. But this book is about living in Vermont and just the kind of like amazing communal experience it is that I think is very different from most larger states. So I wanted to sort of show that.
Can I ask you about the communal state part of it? Because Vermont's funny in that, because it's there's so much communal life, but it can also be so solitary, and winters are cold and you hunker down and you can kind of, we're in spring now, so it feels like everyone's reemerging and I'm like reconnecting with human beings, but you do have to find that balance sometimes.
Yeah, you do. And I love the seasons in Vermont. I love that. And that was another thing that I ended up showing about Vermont was as we go through the book, you go through all the seasons from fall when everything's so gaudy and like postcard like through winter, which is not as cold as anyone would like it to be in the book, to mud season, like to just really not only take people through that, but show it, because it's a graphic novel. I can draw a road in mud season, and that was a really fun challenge.
Yeah. What was hard about it?
Because it's just brown. How do you make that really come alive in the way that a Vermont dirt road becomes like that slithering serpent, Like it's very hard to convey.
Well, while we're talking colors, can you talk to us a little bit about the color palette that you chose for this book? 'Cause it's very different from like Fun Home.
Yeah. Well, this is a book that's fully colored by my partner Holly using Photoshop, and I've never done that before with a book, just because color it's like a lot of work. It's a big project, and I never had time for it. In the olden days, when I was doing Dykes to Watch Out For, in the pre-digital era, color was just too expensive. That was never anything that was possible. But now it is possible. And so we had to figure out what that was going to look like. Holly also worked with me coloring my last book, but it was done in a very different style with a brush. So this was all digital on the computer. And I have always loved the work of Hergé, the Belgian cartoonist who did the Tintin books. So that was kind of
there's a photo of, or a picture of one of the Tintin characters over there.
That is Tintin himself climbing a mountain in the Andes. I've always loved that work, and so we actually copied some of the like basic colors that Hergé used to give us a starting place. I didn't in the end. It's not as quite as beautiful and subtle as his coloring, but we did our best.
It's beautiful. One of your characters has Tintin hair. A bit.
I sort of do. Yes.
I think Lois's hair kind of has a Tintin.
Oh,
yes.
And Lois.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you.
It is a little too. I love Lois.
What's it like collaborating with Holly on that work? Are you making artistic decisions together?
We did. Yeah, it was very much a collaboration. I would turn a page over to her. She would color it however she wanted, and then I'd come in and say, no, change this, change that, which I think was a little frustrating. And we'd have some arguments about certain colors, especially the greens.
What about green?
I don't know, just
tore you apart.
Green. Well, there's so much green there. If you're doing an outdoor scene, and it was very hard to get the kind of subtle green colors I wanted.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot of collaboration, some arguments, but it was really actually a great gift to have someone in this work with me. It's such incredibly demanding, absorbing, lonely work. I've spent my life drawing comics, and you just do it by yourself, which has mostly been fine with me. But then to all of a sudden have someone in it with you, someone who knows what page you're on and what's coming up and what the challenges are of this scene, that was so cool to get to share that.
Yeah.
We have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll hear Alison Bechdel describe her studio and the way she approaches her work. More Vermont Edition at Home when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Vermont Edition. I'm Michaela Lafrac. If you're just joining us, we are listening to the latest installment in our ongoing series, Vermont Edition at Home. In this series, we travel to the home of a noteworthy person in our region, and we record our conversation in one of their favorite rooms. Today, award-winning cartoonist Alison Bechdel in her home studio in Bolton. She has a new book out this week called Spent. This year also marks the 10-year anniversary of the musical Fun Home, which is based on her graphic memoir of the same name. It won a Tony Award for Best Musical. Let's listen to another song from the musical, Ring of Keys. In this scene, the character of small Alison sees a butch lesbian delivery woman in a diner and feels this inexplicable kinship. That moment of self-recognition has resonated with many in the LGBTQ community.
It's probably conceited to say, but I think we're like in a certain way. Your swagger and your bearing at the just right clothes you're wearing, your short hair and your dungarees and your lace-up boots and your keys, oh, your ring of keys.
That was Ring of Keys from Fun Home. Let's return to our conversation with Alison Bechdel.
Speaking of that loneliness or the aloneness of creating, we are in, I assume, the space where you create most of your work.
Yep.
In your studio. Where do you sit? Can you describe it?
I sit at this drawing table right here on my funny little kneeling chair. I've been working in here for like 30 years now.
And I see some pictures of things that I think folks who read the book will recognize.
Oh, yes,
a
that's
lot of goats and a moose head that figures prominently.
My photo reference board, a bunch of little goats. It was so hard to capture the sweetness of a goat. I don't feel like I fully achieved that, but I had those pictures up there to keep inspiring me.
You also have some lovely windows facing out onto the woods here. Do you ever incorporate what you're seeing out in the world or looking at the seasons change and bring that into what you're drawing?
I have in this book. Like I do get this very constant picture of the seasons changing. So it makes me attuned to that and try to figure out how to render that in drawing. Like how do you show that first green fuzz on the trees? How do you draw that?
Oh, the green. So we've been talking a lot about how Vermont factors into this book, and there is a portion of it that's about the flooding that occurred here. Bear Pond Books makes its way into the book in Montpelier, which suffered severe damage from the flooding. Did you already have the story laid out when those floods occurred, or did you shift the path
that's a
of
really
the book?
good question. I have to look at my timeline. The funny thing about those floods was there were two in a row. So I think it was I'd had it in mind, and then we went through it all again when it was already a part of the story. So it made me able to just get a lot of firsthand information about it.
Yeah. Why was it important to include that event in Vermont life and history in this book? Or how did it affect you living through it?
Oh, it did. We were cut off for quite a while, and our road was impassable and still has not recovered.
Yeah.
It's the climate. I think this just needs to be first and foremost in all of what we're thinking and talking about and writing about. How can I write a book that's not addressing this crisis, this spiraling crisis that we're living through?
So you have, I think, long been outspoken about the causes that you believe in this world, and they make their way. Your opinions come through very clear in your work. But one element of Spent that I found so fascinating was this kind of push and pull between you and some of your friends who are living in, they're like living a communal life. They're very involved in a lot of activist work. They're letter writing before you all sit down to Thanksgiving dinner together, and volunteering at lots of different places. And your character, the character of Alison in this book, struggles with that a bit, or feels like maybe I'm not doing enough. I don't know how to get back involved in that world. Is that something that like you've felt in your own life, especially as your work has become more and more well known?
Yes. Yes. And that's part of what I wanted to write about in the memoir when this book was going to be a memoir. Just about how, as you go through life, as you start to earn more money or I don't know, get more respect or whatever, as you build up these reserves of things, you get more defensive about them. You want to keep them and you become self-protective. And it's so easy to, when I was younger and didn't have those kind of stakes and things, I was very much out in the world more, going to meetings and being, I don't know, just going to parties, just being in public spaces with other people. And I mean, there's many reasons why I don't do that, mostly because I'm old and I go to bed early. But I do wish I were more out in the real world. And these characters, the group household in the book, they are out there. They've always been out there doing this work all along. And yeah, I have fallen out of that habit. I mean, I think people pair off, they become couples, they just want to go home and watch Netflix together. That's, it's that kind of isolation that is allowing this weird authoritarian takeover to happen. We're not connected anymore. So that was another theme of the book.
Yeah. Did you, when you became commercially successful, did that like drive a wedge between you and any friends, especially just when you start to earn more money than other people in your life? I feel like that can be, that's been a dividing force in my own life, is like people hit their stride with their careers and some people don't.
Yes, that is a really interesting question, and one I don't feel like that. Well, I don't know. It's hard to say because in general, I've become just more. These are really good questions. I wouldn't say that I've lost friends because I became more famous or something. Although in the book I play a little bit with that. My friends challenge me and tease me and want to go for a ride on my private jet. Like no one in my real life has said things like that. But that's, maybe they're thinking them. And I mean, not that I live in a pretty unostentatious way. It's not like I'm build a McMansion and I'm driving around in my
not
Tesla
even a
truck.
go to your name.
But I feel like, I don't know, just the nature of my life is more, it's just not as community-based as it once was. I know I do a lot of travel. Living on this kind of different level. I'm not home all the time. And that's weird. That's disruptive. And I don't know. Man, I wish I'd thought through all of this stuff more carefully.
No, that's okay. It just like it strikes me as a potentially a tough place to be as somebody who like cares so much about community and about progressive causes, and then also has to kind of figure out like now I'm a really commercially successful person as well, and those two worlds don't always overlap naturally.
Yeah, well, one of the things Alison in the book is struggling with is the fact that the publisher publishing her book is this like giant mega corporation.
Yeah, what's it called? Like
Megalopub.
Megalopub, yeah.
That's doing all this harm in the world. So is it ethical for her to take their money to put out her feeble little message about, anti-capitalism? She decides in the end that it is, but as I too have decided, like, yeah, I'm publishing with this big mainstream press because I want to get the word out.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a decision that a lot of us have to make maybe on a smaller scale, but we make every single day with, where we order things from online and where we're going to buy our food or our gas from, things like that.
Yeah, so. I was just worried that there's going to be a pile of Amazon packages on my porch when you guys arrived today.
There were already some in the book, so we all do it.
Yeah, I tried to get off Amazon, but I somehow slid back on.
Yeah, I also wanted to ask you about the title of the book, Spent, because we can refer to spent as in spending money, as we've been talking about, but also feeling emotionally spent. And I wonder if that was a choice you made.
Yes, yeah, definitely. It has multiple meanings. Early in the book, Allison's looking at the news on her computer, and just like everything is so dismal and scary. And she's, wait, can I read it? Because I won't be able to remember the words.
Do it.
Allison doom scrolls the day away. How she rues the decades she spent fretting that the country was on the verge of fascism. Now it really is, and she's worn out. That's kind of that's how I feel lately. Like, a lot of what's happening has been happening all along, but now it's just happening out in the light and with this great determination, and I'm old, and I'm not sure what to do about it.
Do you feel old?
Some days I do. Today I feel pretty peppy.
You don't strike me as a person who would define themselves as old.
Well, it's funny.
Seems old.
One thing I've been noticing among my friends in my same age group is that we often preface things by saying, I'm old. Like, as if no one else can notice that. But it's like it's a factor for you as you get older, and you feel the need to announce it.
Yeah. Okay, well, that brings me to one of my other questions about the book. There's a scene in there where you're zooming with I think it's like a publicist or a marketing person from this company that's going to be putting out your book, and she's like, I want you to be on like 5 different social media outlets, and you got to be on TikTok, and like I see you're only posting 3 times a year, and it's usually about cats, and like we're good with the introvert demo, which felt very relatable to me too. But I wonder if that was we talked to a lot of authors on Vermont Edition, and it's a theme that comes up a lot, this like this struggle with having to, no matter what level of success you're at, you still sort of have to be your own publicist.
Yes. Yeah. You know, when I was younger, to go back to the age thing, I was very excited about it. I loved it. When Fun Home came out in 2006, I had a blog that was very active, and all these people followed it, and I was posting on Facebook, and it was exciting. But then, of course, the internet like went over to the dark side, and it was awful being implicated in all of those spaces. And you know, there were trolls, and I couldn't keep up that open forum anymore. I miss those days. And yeah, I do have to put stuff out on Instagram, and that's a very unpleasant bargain to have to make, given what Meta has wrought on the world. But I don't know. I just try to make decisions day by day about what makes sense.
Do you find that there are still spaces online where you feel like you can make connections with people?
Well, I just joined Blue Sky, although I haven't really spent much time there. So maybe that will turn out to be one of those spaces.
Yeah.
I think kind of everyone's sort of holding back to wait and see. So maybe we'll all plunge in together.
So we're not going to be seeing you and Holly doing like TikTok dance moves anytime soon?
No, I think I'm much too old to attempt a TikTok.
So we've touched a little bit on politics, and we don't have to go too in depth, but one of the relationships in the book that I really loved reading about, because it also felt very relatable, was this relationship that the character Allison has with her sister, who is conservative and lives in Pennsylvania, and is living a very different life than she is.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could talk a bit about the development of that storyline.
Yeah, that was really fun to do. In the book, I have a sister. I don't really have a sister, so it was like a way to just kind of go all in on this fictional character. And she's really just the same character as Allison. They're drawn identically, except Sheila has long hair and Allison has short hair. Mm-hmm. Their mannerisms and quirks are all the same. But Allison came out as a lesbian in college and went on to have this like counterculture life that, strangely enough, worked out and made her kind of famous. Well, whereas Sheila, the good girl who went to a small religious school, teaches elementary school art. She's a seed artist, like the people who make those amazing collages out of seeds and grains at the fair. And Alison is a cartoonist, so they both have these similar kind of slightly spectrumy activities that they do, but it didn't work out so great for Sheila. And so there's envy. Also, Alison left Sheila out of her memoir about their father, thinking, I mean, Alison says that was because she was protecting her sister's privacy, but really I think it just made a tidier story.
Well, that also made me wonder. I was like, did Alison Bechdel leave a sister out of Fun
Maybe
Home?
I did.
Where is she?
Maybe I did. That was part of the fun of all of this, was kind of obscuring all the truly personal information I have put out into the world over my career about my life and family. Like, I think I'm starting to have a bit of a hangover about some of that. So it was a fun way to cast it all in doubt.
Yeah. It worked. Freaked me out.
Time for one more break. More Vermont Edition at Home with Alison Bechdel when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Vermont Edition. I'm Michaela Lafrac. If you're just joining us, we are listening to the latest installment of our occasional series, Vermont Edition at Home. In this series, we have intimate conversations in the homes of noteworthy people in our region. Today's is with the cartoonist Alison Bechdel of Bolton. She's a MacArthur Genius Grant recipient and the author of 3 graphic memoirs, Fun Home, Are You My Mother, and The Secret to Superhuman Strength. She's also the creator of the long-running comic Dykes to Watch Out For. You'll recognize some of those characters in her new graphic novel, Spent, which comes out this week. We spoke to her in her home studio.
I would love to ask you a little bit more about your tools of the trade. Since we're sitting here in your studio and I see many a paintbrush and some sort of brick that has a pen holder soldered onto it. Maybe we'll start there.
Oh my God, isn't that thing hideous? It's 2 bricks with this little plastic pen holder glued between them. I once had a drawing table that had that black plastic pen thing attached to it.
Uh-huh.
But the table fell apart. So I saved the pen holder because it's great. It holds the pens on their ends in a very handy way. Yeah. And I couldn't find anything else that did that. And then how would I attach it to this table, which has all these metal edges? Like, I couldn't figure out a way to do that. So I just put it on top by putting it on these heavy bricks so it wouldn't slide off the table. Because the table obviously is on a slant.
Oh, that's ingenious.
Thank you.
Yeah. I see so many paintbrushes. Are you partial to a specific brand or type or?
Well, a lot of what you see are Sumi brushes, which are from my last book, The Secret to Superhuman Strength, where I was trying to explore drawing with a brush as just a way to kind of free up my line. But I have a terrible confession to make to you, Michaela, which is that I haven't touched many of those brushes in a very long time, because during the course of this book, I totally went over to the dark side myself and stopped drawing with a pen on paper and started drawing digitally. Because
why do you call it a dark side?
Well, because it feels somehow less, it's just becoming more of a cyborg. And do we really need to spend any more time on screens and devices than we already are? I love paper. I love the way that drawing is. It's the same thing people have been doing for millennia. It's like what monks did. I was doing, this very time-honored thing, and now I'm not. Now I'm drawing on a screen with a stylus, and there's no product. There's nothing real in the end that exists, but is much faster, which is why I did it.
I was going to ask, why the switch?
It's a lot faster and more flexible. And I thought when I was making the transition that, this new line I was making really was pretty undetectable you couldn't really tell them apart. But now I can see very clearly when the real pen stopped and the digital pen started.
Does that bother you?
It kind of bothers me, but it also makes me determined to perfect my digital line to get a better digital brush.
Yeah.
And also maybe to change the whole process so that I'm sketching digitally, but maybe I'll find a way to do the final art on paper again.
Well, there is a very real physical thing in front of us that you produced from something digital. So
Yes, that's
rest
true.
assured. It's a beautiful book.
I love the physicality of comics, that you're touching the pages and posing for the characters, and that in the end it's this quite heavy three-dimensional object that you've produced.
Yeah. I also see lots of, seems like art by folks who you might admire. We talked about Tintin. I see the cover of Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. Are there other pieces of inspiration hidden around the room?
I have an Edward Gorey print over there, which I'm very proud of.
Yeah.
Actually has his signature on it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm a huge Gorey fan. That's my Gorey collection, those books there.
What do you love about his work?
Oh God, everything. I had children's books that he illustrated when I was a kid, which I loved. But then when I got older, I discovered his books for adults, his illustrated books for adults, and they're just so weird and trippy and beautifully drawn. And he'd hand letter them with this typographic lettering. It just everything about that fascinated me.
Alison, one of the things that that has surprised and delighted me most about being a journalist here in Vermont is how many cartoonists I have interviewed.
What is going
in this
on?
role. I mean, I think it speaks to this like wealth of cartooning talent that is in our region, but it was something I was not expecting when I moved up here. And I'm wondering how you see yourself fitting into that, where you think it comes from. Is it all like, does it grow out of the Center for Cartooning Studies in White River Junction? What is it?
I think to a certain degree it grows from the Center for Cartoon Studies. But it was there before that, and that's why the Center for Cartoon Studies is here, because there was already like a certain number of cartoonists in the area.
Yeah.
So it's some kind of weird, God. What do you call that when things cross-fertilize?
Of events. No, it's...
I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it feels of a piece with the way that Vermont is also. I mean, it's a rural place, but for me as a lesbian, it always felt like so much safer than other rural places to live. Like I grew up in central Pennsylvania, and that did not feel like a place I would want to live. There's something about. I mean, and it's not just the topography, because obviously New Hampshire has a very different political atmosphere, and cultural. But there's something going on here. I don't know, the Back to the Land movement, the hippies who came here. I think that's probably in the mix too.
Well, for younger Vermonters who might be listening to this and want to emulate your career or admire it, I'm sure you get asked for advice for young cartoonists all the time, but I am curious, particularly for folks who live in this region, how do you follow in your footsteps?
Well, I've been like insanely lucky. Like whoever thought writing a lesbian comic strip was gonna like work out for anyone, but it did, weirdly. So I guess what I'm saying is you can't try to follow in anyone else's footstep. All you can do is do the work that is meaningful to you. And if you're thinking about the end result of some sort of fame or certain kind of lifestyle, that is not going to work out. You have to love the work itself, and then at least you get to do the work, whether you end up, making a lot of money for it or not. You're doing what you love.
And then lastly, I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the community that you've created for yourself and your partner here in this part of the state. I mean, as I think we've mentioned, sort of live in the middle of the woods, but you also have a very strong community that surrounds you all. Do you have a lot of like friends that you've had for a long time here? Is there a town where you find yourself gravitating towards?
Actually that's been sort of in flux. Like Burlington used to be very much my focus. Like I would visit friends there, I'd go shopping there, I'd do everything there.
Yeah.
But since COVID, I don't really go to Burlington that much. I used to go to the Y. I don't belong to the Y anymore. Used to go to therapy. I don't go to therapy anymore. So I've actually been.
Are you okay?
I think I'm okay.
Right.
So I don't have that Burlington routine, but I'm also sort of going to other places. I go to Montpelier more often. I go to Middlebury more often. So I'm kind of feeling kind of dispersed at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the COVID thing because the COVID thing, that little pandemic thing, because there's a lot of scenes that take place in the pandemic or kind of in that like right after the pandemic, but it's still the pandemic sort of zone. And for me, I feel like there's all these books that are coming out now, and movies and TV shows that depict the pandemic. Enough time has passed that we can kind of start to revisit it. But there's also still a little bit of like PTSD in looking, like seeing your characters doing the nose swabs before going inside somebody's house. I was like, oh, don't take me back there, Alison.
Well, it's funny. I used to be interested in the fact that no one talked about what is it? I can't even think of it. When everyone got the flu in 1914. What was that?
1918?
1918.
Yeah.
The Spanish flu. Is that what they called it? This is so not worth even following through now that But I was just going to say, that was something that people didn't talk about. And this was a phenomenon even before we stopped talking about COVID. Like when bad things happen, we just want to go into denial about it. So it was interesting to me that, blank space of how people were feeling about what was going on.
Yeah.
Like it was lots of people died and there was no real stories about it. So I felt like I wanted to at least show some of the texture of that life, even though we would all rather not think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice to have it documented in a way because it feels, it's already gotten so fuzzy.
I know.
Even though it was just a couple of years ago. But seeing your characters, again, doing the nose swab with them, pulling their mask down in the co-op to say hi to someone and putting it back on. Those little details I found myself like really cherishing in there. Are you doing like a local book tour or a big national one?
I'm doing a big national tour and then I'm coming back and going all over Vermont. So that'll be cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Alison, it's been such a pleasure talking to you, and thank you for inviting us into your home.
Thank you, Michaela. You're very welcome. Thanks for coming up the hill.
Cartoonist Alison Bechdel from her home studio in Bolton. And like Alison said, she'll be on tour in our region very soon. She'll be at the Norwich Bookstore on June 2nd and Bear Pond Books in Montpelier on June 3rd. You can also catch her at Phoenix Books in Burlington June 10th and Galaxy Bookstore in Hardwick June 12th. Thank you so much to Alison and Holly for welcoming the Vermont Edition team into your home. And be sure to stay tuned for future interviews in our At Home series. Our next interview will be with the author and herbalist Rosemary Gladstar from her home garden in Milton. She's often referred to as the godmother of American herbalism. Vermont Edition's managing producer is John Aarons, and our producers are Andrea Lorian and Daniela Fierro. Our theme music is by Myra Flynn. I'm Michaela Lafrac. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch up again soon.